Good morning, everyone. This is Karen Logan with the Logan County Chamber of Commerce. We're so excited to be here today. We've had an opportunity to meet with our member businesses over the last several weeks. This is our fourth webinar on Wednesday, just to kind of touch on some topics of interest during this quarantine time and how we can better deal with it. So I'm really excited today to have James Slaton. He is with the Community Health Centers of Western Kentucky here in Russellville, and he is a mental health specialist here at this location. So James, welcome with us today. Glad you're here with us.
Thank you, Karen. I'm glad to be here.
So I know he and I were talking, just there's a lot of concern and there's just that we're in a whole different time, aren't we? I mean, this is just
We are.
something that anyone living, they said, has never been through this, and um, I just felt like it was important to meet a need today on how to deal with things that you're going through internally, so that we can come out as a better person, and then therefore we can be better for each other and for our community as well. So. Um, the floor is yours and take
Okay.
it away.
Okay. Once again, I'm glad to be here. And today we want to start off our conversation with self care, which covers basically taking care of oneself. But it is a connection of taking care of our mind, body, and soul. It's like a conglomeration of doing all that. So, things we can do, staying active. As far as work goes, some people have been out of work, obviously, due to the pandemic, which is a time to step up things like exercise, communication, hobbies, new and old. It's time to explore things like that within the confines of the current pandemic, financial strain, and stuff like that. The main thing that I've been telling people, stay active, control how much information you take in, especially if it's negative. Okay.
Mhm.
And we can always cut the news on and see the do's and don'ts. So we don't have to think about what we can't do. Let's figure out what we can do. I mean, we can take walks, we can utilize nature a lot, and things like that. As far as anxiety that comes along with this, because I think we're all experiencing that, communication, support systems, family members, even utilizing technology. So there's multiple apps to where you can do, FaceTime or things of that nature. So we just sort of have to slow down and think about what we can do. And I think that helps us stay in a more positive light. I've dealt with a lot of, I mean, some people are watching a lot of news and things like that, which is, it's good information, but I'm encouraging them to more or less schedule times to do that.
Mhm.
Like if you're used to working 8 hours a day and you're off, don't spend 8 hours watching the news, By all means stay informed, but take time to get out. Look at your health and things like that. Physical health and mental health sort of they do go hand in hand. So it's exercise. Nature is the one thing. I mean, we can't really go to stores and the mall, but we can go outside. We can go outside and walk and enjoy stuff like that. Kids involved because they've been out of school for a long time and they're getting a little, little edgy, a little pent up. So getting them outside also helps out a lot. As far as relaxation, people can study. Like the internet has a lot of information out there on meditation. There's yoga and things of that nature. Some people utilize music. So self care is just doing things to care for your minds, bodies, and souls, and sort of bringing it all together. So that could be anything. I'm not real directive with people on what they should do, but I think hobbies, once again, or I use music, I cook a lot, just different things, and you should probably be able to change it up. You don't want to do the same thing every day because that becomes monotonous and a routine. If you're going to incorporate exercise, which is a very good thing, you want to follow your doctor recommendations. You want to abide by social distancing and everything that's in place so you can stay safe and know your limitations. And once again, incorporate nature because I feel that's a big thing and it gives us a different perspective and it gets us out of the house, kind of things like that. Self reflection, we're going to talk about that. That is a very good coping skill, and it's a very good way to do self care. And it involves basically is looking at ourselves and evaluating ourselves on where we are versus where we want to be. Sometimes that may not be positive when we start, but it is definitely worth sort of working through it. And if you find that it brings on a lot of negativity, we'll just step away from it. You can talk with family, friends, you can collaborate with them, you can get different opinions, and thereby formulate your own opinion and make positive change as you go. Because there are times when we do self reflection that, we may not like what we see. But with the more time we have on our hands, we actually have time to make positive change. If we don't like something, we can address it. If we don't know how to address it, there are many resources out there, that you can look up, or you can seek out a therapist, obviously, and all that. We have, for those who find themselves, their anxiety is really getting really high, then obviously we need to implement something to balance that back out, which takes us right back to self care. Okay. Self care ideally is something we can do daily. I mean, there's some days when I can squeeze in 10 minutes, there's some days when I can squeeze in an hour, but a minute is better than nothing. So that's sort of the way we should think about that. Some examples more to the point: develop a regular sleep routine, aim for a healthy diet. If you are working, make sure you take your lunch breaks as you should. And then walking is the exercise again. You can utilize your pets if you have that. And also, you have sick leave if you need to be off. Okay. The main thing is you have to be able to regulate yourself. So, when, say, anxiety or depression is getting to become more than you can handle, you know. And at that point, well, you need to talk to someone. They'll give you advice, follow their advice, come up with your own advice. The main thing it is communication, so you don't start to feel isolated. Isolation is definitely not going to help us with this current situation. So, as far as being out of work, that can create sort of an isolated type situation, especially if you don't have family there in your residence and this or that, and you're not going to work, and there's limitations on what we can do. That's when we really need to look for things we can do. We can't do this, we can't do that, but there are some things we can do in short bursts, and we really need to look at that. And so, isolation, we need to reach out and talk to somebody. Doesn't have to be a mental health professional by any means, but we are here and we are always available if that's what you need. If you have no one else to talk to, you I know at this facility we offer telehealth with video, without video, and we're still seeing patients also. So, and that we have things at the front where we check everybody, and it's really whatever the patient needs. Some people need to be at home, but they still need to get services, so we offer that. If you don't know how to utilize medication, yoga, or even exercise, use the internet because they have some good instructions out there on that. You look up two or three different topics or sites on that and just put them together and develop your own routine. The concept of self care is something we should always be doing. It keeps our anxiety and depression sort of at a safe level. And life is going to bring stuff, and we don't know what that is. So ultimately, the only thing we can control is how we feel and what shape we're in. With that said, if we're in good shape, physical shape being good, depending on the individual, good mental health shape, then whatever life sort of throws at us, we have options, you know. So that's something we really want to think about. And this time that things are sort of slowed down, it's the perfect time to implement some good practices. And then once as we open up, we can actually maintain those practices. We have time to do things like develop good habits and things of that nature. So I am encouraging people to look at that kind of stuff. And you do that through self-reflection. But once again, I caution people on that too, because that may not always be positive. So you have to be able to cut that off and do something else, which falls right back to self care. So it's like sort of like an outline, with self care being at the top, and that works for if you're off from work, it still works. If you're working, you definitely need to do it. Just anytime you feel spikes, that should be the immediate answer. But if you do it daily, it'll be a habit. Not to say you won't have spikes in anxiety and depression or anything, because I mean things happen in life that we can't control. But the more prepared we are, the better we're going to be able to handle whatever life throws at us anyway. And of course, during the pandemic, we're getting a lot of stuff thrown at us, almost daily. Okay. So being in contact with your medical professionals, if you have a mental health professional, definitely communicating with them, utilizing technology, which we're all trying to get up to speed with that, utilizing technology to stay in touch with friends and family. You can do video get-togethers and stuff like that. A lot of people are doing that. I've read about that on Facebook, and it works very well also. That's just like look. I mean, we're looking at what we can do, so we're actually utilizing, like say, technology. Sorry, my screen. So if we don't know how to utilize that stuff, well, it's the perfect time to learn. Okay. As far as the being out of work, which that's affecting a lot of people, a lot of people. Isolation, once again, is definitely not going to help that. So communication, I can't stress that enough. Communicate, because there are other people going through stuff. None of us are alone in this, and it's easy for us to start feeling like we are. Although every situation is unique, if you communicate with people, you'll find similarities. And then at that point, you have at least two minds working to create a better situation versus one. So, with that said, self care is where it's at. I mean, we have the time, we have the resources, and it gives us a break from trying to figure out all the complicated things that say the pandemic has brought on us. How we'll do this, how we'll do that. I mean, even a shortage of something that we need at the grocery store can spike our anxiety right now because there's so much going on. The main thing is not, I don't want to think about it, is keep our anxiety at zero, because I think that's impossible. You know, we just want to strive for some kind of balance. And if we're constantly addressing how we feel, knowing where we are at any given time, as far as mentally and physically, that just gives us better ammunition when something does come. You know, staying in communication with, of course, medical professionals, supervisors, and things like that. Knowing the situation as to maybe when we may go back to work and things like that. All that requires communication. So the better we communicate, I mean, I think it will help us keep things down, keep our anxiety down. Isolation, once again, I'm going to stay on that. That is not our friend in any of this. I mean, we need that interaction. We need to be able to bounce ideas off of people. And there are, for those who have real strong support systems, they sort of have that covered. So for those who do not, then we need to search outside the box, outside of what we regularly do. I mean, working 40 hours a week, that's a big chunk of time. And, usually at work, we have people that we interact with and all that. So people who have been off from work due to what's going on, well, that was just taken from them, and now maybe they have nothing. So I'm encouraging people to figure out ways to fill that void, but don't fill that void with just information about what you can't do, can't do, because that will weigh heavy on you, and you'll feel your anxiety and depression and a bunch of other stuff start spiking up. You know, if you all of a sudden are feeling sick outside of obviously the things that go along with the pandemic, then you should probably go see your doctor or something like that, because that could be anxiety, it could be depression, you know. And at that time, I mean, any medical health professional can talk to you about this kind of stuff, about techniques, that you can do or try to keep everything sort of balanced out, which is a very important concept. Self-regulation. That is basically knowing where we are at all times. Of course, I'm talking about physically, which is sort of easy to do because we know where we are, but also mentally. It's mentally like a mental inventory, keeping up with where we are, keeping up with how we feel about things, That way we know when things start fluctuating, you know, as far as limitations go, which, has a very negative connotation. But I mean, when it comes to spikes in anxiety, physical, we should know our limitations so we never exceed them. Or if we are exceeding them, we can prepare for that and take the necessary steps. Stuff like that. Once again, you can do the research on it. You can speak to someone about it, and stuff. And it's actually unique to the individual. I mean, there's general definitions for how to do self-reflection and this or that, but then I talk to people about this every day, and I always learn something unique every time the topic comes up because it is unique to the individual. I use music a lot. Some people don't like music. Some people rather cook, or run and stuff like that. So it is unique. But the more people you talk to about it, the more insight you get into, and you can always take all that and put it together and develop your own plan. Like I say, self care should definitely be every day, and you'll find it hard because we have financial constraints, we have location constraints, obviously. There's places we can't go, things we can't do. But at that, I continue to push people to think about what they can do. Get creative, think outside your normal box per se, and and then they just keep building on it. Get people involved. Maybe some group stuff, of course, within the confines of social distancing and things of that nature. But that's a lot easier to do when you're out in the wide open versus being in a building per se. I've been I'll use Kentucky Lake right below the dam. I was there the other day. There were a lot of people there, but I'm, just in looking, everybody was spaced out and there was still plenty of space to go. So, you know, I really think that being in nature is a way for us to come through this, you know, in a more balanced way because we're being active, which so that's helping us physically, mentally. It helps us in so many different ways. It actually gives us motivation. It gives us good self care, obviously, but it also hits self esteem, which and self confidence. So there's something to be said for that. So as we've been slowed down, whether we wanted to or not, I'm all about trying to find ways to use that time to maybe elevate us for even after this is all over with. We'll just be, if nothing else, in better shape physically for sure, and mentally also. So I definitely would like people to focus on that. You can come up with their own definition of self care. That's something, obviously, I talk to people about it daily, but I never define it for anybody. It's one of those things that I like to give out as like homework, which makes some people like homework. I'm like, yeah, homework. And I have them develop a definition and they bring it back to me. And the minute that I get that here in the office, well, that's the definition we work on. We go off that definition entirely. That is the only definition we use until they're done because it's their definition. So they own it, they've developed it, and they can change it whenever they want, which shows, it almost forces you to get creative. If you don't want to get bored, it's going to force you to be creative on a lot of different stuff. If you're going to try to combat being bored, because boredom does bring on a lot of things. People, something I've heard, well, I'm all up in my own head. I'm thinking, well, that's not a bad place to be, but you want to know how to do that. Even know when it's time to not be all up in your head and just go out here and say, take in the birds or something like that, to give you some perspective on things. So everything sort of works off timing. Okay. It's a rhythm to it, but the rhythm is unique to the individual, you know. But with trying to learn something, there's going to be mistakes. Sometimes we're not going to get it right. Sometimes we're going to plan on, I'm going to do this for self care this day, and then something's going to come up. So we're not going to get to it. That's when we have to really get creative. The self care thing should be a habit, and of course, I would define it as a very good habit. It takes time to develop habits. That's unique to the individual also. But once you get it in that stage of being a habit, it becomes this thing you do without even thinking about it, you know? And if you run, if you're a runner, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're still running, obviously you're getting in better physical shape, but mentally that's not doing it for you. Well, just change it up, walk or do a puzzle, adult coloring books, children coloring books. And some of the best days I have is when I get to color with a child that comes in here. I mean, not something I do on a regular basis, but when they're here, it's pretty regular and I actually enjoy it. So there's all kinds of things. The main thing, once again, we have to get outside the box and think about this stuff. You know, what can we do versus what we can't do? I mean, I watch the news periodically just so I know what's going on, and a lot of people here in the clinic keep me sort of straight because I'm not a big news watcher on, what we should be doing as far as specific stuff and this or that. But I'm all about what we can do, within the confines that we have right now. We definitely want to stick to that, to keep ourselves safe, keep everybody safe. But some people say we are on lockdown on some level, but that is a safety thing, you know, verbally, so everybody will be safe. But there is so much other things we can do. Communication is a key part of that. I think exercising is a key part of that, which I've stepped up mine and, I feel good about that. It took the pandemic to get me to the right level, I guess. So, I mean, we're all in this together, no matter what we do for a living. I mean, we're learning as we go. I've never been in a situation like this. I did see there was a lady, I can't remember where I saw it on the news, and she was born during the last quarantine. So that makes her close to 100 or right at 100 years old, something like that. And I saw her on the news, I believe that's where it was. And she was just full of smiles and talking about how we will come through this. And, I saw that. That was very inspiring. I can't remember how I felt when I done that, when I was looking at it, because I'm sure it was early in the morning. I was probably dreading being on the treadmill or something like that. But it did give me new perspective. And that's not something I usually do is watch the news in the morning. But I did that morning. That's probably why. I saw that and I was definitely motivated to do everything I had coming that day. So once again, watching the news can be a good thing, but we do need to limit that because too much negativity coming in and not enough positive, I mean, that's not going to be balanced. Even if we watch a lot of information on it, then we should probably be communicating with other people, getting other opinions and views and stuff like that, because that will also balance it out. Because I know that self care for some people is watching like TV and stuff like that. So even that we need to balance it out. I mean, we can watch different shows. Like I say, if your thing is watching the news and keeping up with information, then you should definitely probably be involved talking with other people about what you're seeing. Therefore, you get what they're saying, and opinions are different, but that's not a bad thing either. So either way, whatever you choose to do with self care, just look for the balance. Self care a lot of times is individual, but that is not considered isolation if you do self care by yourself. You know, Isolation is usually this prolonged thing where there's no input, there's no contact, there's no anything. And that is something that I've been dealing with a lot more with people, because they don't know what to do. Like work has stopped, they're waiting on unemployment. I think there was a backup at that at one time. May still be backed up. So, and you can't get through to the entities because the phones are also backed up, you know, and obviously that builds anxiety. I mean, it will definitely build anxiety. So we have to do things that's going to sort of combat that because we can't control if they answer the phone. If they answer the phone and they don't know, we can't control that either. At the end of the day, we can definitely control ourselves. We can control how we feel. We can control that kind of stuff. We have to allow ourselves to go through all the emotions, and not resort to say anger, because if we get angry, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the actions that may follow. So even that needs to be under some level of control from us. But we have to gauge, and I want to speak about this, to gauge all of our emotions. Okay. I mean, frustration, well, we need to know what's making us frustrated. If, say, we can't get in touch with the entity that's controlling our financial situation, that's going to be very frustrating, no doubt. That is a time to employ self care, of course, within the confines of the limitations we have, within the confines of the financial limitations we have, within all those confines. That's why I always go back to nature, because we can go out and say, go for a walk for free. I mean, it's not going to fix the financial situation, but it will maybe just give us an inch of feeling better. And an inch, in my world, the inch is what we go for. If we get 5 inches, if we get a mile, we celebrate that. But we can always get that inch usually. And so that's a win too. We need wins, especially when we have so many things that are going wrong, you know. But this is a new situation. We can learn a lot. We can definitely learn how to take care of ourselves, which is something we can pass on to everybody. If we step up our self care, my kids are grown, but people who have little kids, they will follow, you know. And I talk to my girls about taking care of themselves. I ask them a lot, probably get on their nerves with that, but it's a very important concept. And not everything requires financial commitment, and most things they do are shut down anyway. So the simple things, I guess, gardening, if you're into growing things, if you've never tried, well, try it out. It'll make some good stories anyway. You know, Trying to grow something and failing usually has a lot of comic relief to it. So, I mean, there is that. And then you get hooked on it, and then because you want to succeed at it, and there you go. You just implemented a good habit, that's like minimal cost at best, depending on what you're working on. So it's things like that. We have to think outside of our normal routine. If we work 40, 60 hours a week and we're not doing that now, let's put that time towards something else. Okay. And we balance out what we put it towards. That's very important. We have to have a balance in what's coming in, what's going out. If negativity is coming in, we need some positivity coming in from somewhere. We have to search that out sometimes because it won't be obvious. I mean, once we start on that road, one thing happens, another thing happens, now we have two, and before we know it, we have five, and it builds and builds. That'll sort of shape the way we think about things, and then we'll be creating negative stuff. We'll see everything that way. We want to sort of go against that grain. We don't want to get that way. So we have to have these outlets. And during this pandemic, I mean, self-care is an outlet. Of course, under that, I've mentioned many things, but I actually, like I said, I look forward to hearing what people do. You know, I'm pretty straightforward with what I do. I don't change it up a lot unless it's not working. So every time I hear new ideas, I'm like, oh man, that's pretty cool. Not that I try them all, but they're very interesting. And sometimes I get to pass those on to other people, if they're having trouble coming up with stuff. So as far as coping skills, I want to talk about coping skills for the things we're feeling, whether you call it anxiety, depression, whatever you call it. But we all understand. I'm going to go back to use the example of being out of work. That stirs up a lot of stuff. Financial, responsibility we have, the finances maybe not coming in, or maybe not coming in the way they did. You know, if work was your main avenue of interaction with people, well, then that's gone, and there's a host of other things that can bring along. So, coping skills for that, that's right, self care. Right back to that. More specifically, the communication piece, okay? Because there are so many people in that situation. So, you have people to talk to. I mean, reach out to coworkers, that Obviously, you used to see them at least 5 days a week, if not 6 or 7. Well, reach out to them. Talk to them on the phone. Get a Zoom, FaceTime for the Apple product, and there's a host of other things. I can't even think of all of them. Well, Facebook, obviously, to stay in contact with people. And be creative about it. Scheduling things outside in small groups, that type thing, where you can actually abide by the social distancing and stuff like that. You know, ride to the lake, take in some trails, and the trails are open. And I'll speak on that. The Mammoth Cave trails are open. Mammoth Cave itself is closed, but as far as utilizing the trails, they are open, as well as land between the lakes. The camping is closed down, I believe, but the trails are open there also. We have a trail right here in Russellville that's pretty good also. And I travel to bypass a lot, and I am seeing a lot more cars over there, so people are definitely taking advantage of that, and they're going to benefit from stuff like that. So I'm going to recap self care. Okay. There is no definition of it. Trust me, it can be whatever you want it to be. It should definitely be positive. But I know for me, I try to use exercise a lot, and it's positive, but it can be a little painful. So there is that. But push through it. Do that in moderation. Talk to your doctors. Know your limitations on that. And actually, the more you do it, the more you have the ability to push forward and even do more. Okay. Of course, nature, once again, I've been speaking on that a lot because it's there. It's always been there. It's still there. And we really don't have a restriction to that, within the confines of what we have going on. Hobbies, old hobbies, if they work, but develop new hobbies. That should be within the confines of the pandemic, financial, all that kind of stuff. And hobbies are what they are. So as far as financially, we may have to look at that, figure out what we can do. But like I brought up earlier, there's adult coloring books, kid coloring books. Of course, I'll throw that in there and stuff like that. Puzzles. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. The process of self-reflection, looking at ourselves, that can have can have a hard component to it, especially if we're looking at something about ourselves we don't like. So I advise take that slowly, take it in small doses, and therefore make small increments of change with that. Okay. And it's over time, and we obviously have some time. So it's a very important concept. That's the thing that lets us know sort of our location at all times. Of course, I'm talking more about mentally, but also physically. Okay. We talked about relaxation. That can be a lot of different stuff. I use meditation and yoga were the two things I brought up, but also through music in there. You know, music is universal. I mean, I don't know how many genres there are of music, but there's a lot of them. I'm sure there's something out there to fit everybody's needs. We may have to explore that. And once again, back to the exercise. And just definitely control on some level how much, and I say negative information. I mean, it's good information because I think it keeps us safe, but we have to control how much we take in, you know, and it's like there's so much different information about it. We just have to control all that. That is probably the biggest thing I'm running into with people, because they're not getting out. And I totally understand that. But as long as it's not a monsoon coming down, I mean, you could get outside, sit around, look around. This time of year, there's all kinds of stuff going on out there. You may actually find something you like, bird watching, things like that. Of course, go back to gardening type stuff, flowers and stuff. So just be creative with it. Get as creative as you can and share it with other people because there's a lot of people that don't have good self care. You know, I know self care is good, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect at it because I'm not. I have to force myself at times. But with that said, that's our theme, self care. If anybody has any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer. You know, and also I would love input on that. Because I move a lot of information from person to person. And the more creative we are, the better it works for us. And that's all the information I have today.
Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. A lot of, I feel like it would really help a lot of people. So I'm going to continue to pass this message along. A couple of things I was writing down as you were talking, and right now is a great time to invest any extra time you have into self development and professional development, uh,
Yes.
to kind of get your mind a place to go. And, those different times, I know that I've been so busy in the past, I'm like, I don't really have time for extra development of myself. And right now I'm working
Right.
on leadership skills and, things that I really didn't have time for. So be thinking about that. There's all kinds of opportunities online that are free, that you don't have to pay for, that you can watch different videos and stuff. And another course that I had taken, that I feel like is relevant here as far as what the lady said that stood out to me the most. And she said, make choices now that will make you proud of your future self.
Yes. That's a concept within self reflection. Very well stated.
Yeah. So, like, you think about you in the now always. What's happening to me now, but be thinking about, okay, there is a future still ahead. We
Right.
may not
Right.
be thinking about that right now because we're in a different moment, but there is a great future still ahead. And be thinking about the choices that you make now. What can that do to better your future, and those
Yes.
around you as well? So, and just a big wrapping that up in my mind is there's a lot of people that are going through what you're going through right now. So you're not
Right.
going through this alone. I know you touched on that. So I just want to bring it I guess one thing is, probably in some people's minds, at what point do you think that they would want to see a mental health specialist? Would it be, um, you're really, I don't know what that looks like for people. Are they worried about insurance? Are they, I just hate the fact that, the whole money part, how that goes right now interferes with that. At what point would you suggest, if someone is struggling, that they seek advice from a mental health professional?
I would say, you know, ideally people know their limitations. If they do not, any spike that is, and it's hard to say, but does not feel normal to them, okay, they should seek out a mental health professional or a medical professional, which will guide them to a mental health professional. I mean, we know if something pops up today and I feel hopeless and I have no clue on what to do, that is definitely the time to seek out a professional. It's hard to say for each individual, but we know when things change.
Yeah.
We know when they don't feel normal to us. Now, I see normal as something that changes regularly, but so it's unique to the individual, but they should definitely seek out. As far as cost and things like that, we have a sliding scale here, so that doesn't really affect anything.
Okay.
Our scale adjusts to whatever their income is. But that's a very important concept too. It's something we have to consider. But as a mental health professional and this entity, we figured that out on the back end ultimately. We don't want people out here and feeling hopeless that they have nowhere to turn. Okay. The person that has a positive support system versus the person that doesn't, well, that's going to be different as far as when they should seek something out.
Okay.
If you don't have a support system, you're going to be dealing with a lot of stuff by yourself, and maybe you should seek that out sooner. It does not imply that you're weak or that something is wrong with you or anything like that. It simply implies that things are changing quickly and it's just too much at one time, and all it is perspective. And talking to other people, you get different perspectives.
And overall, that's answering the mental health question. You're trying to remain mentally healthy. I mean, I know that sounds
Exactly.
silly, but that's what it boils back down to, is if
Yeah.
you're feeling unhealthy in your head, I know that's, but
Yeah. That is true. And I spoke on too, sometimes it can be physical. You know, it depends on where a person is at. And I use anxiety a lot because that's what I run into. I mean, they have medical symptoms, like they don't feel good, stomach problems, things of that nature. but at the end of the day, there's nothing medically going on, so it's mental. So any changes like that, I mean, if you don't feel healthy, definitely, if it feels medical, talk to the doctor. I mean, the doctor will figure out if it's a medical issue. If it's not, usually end up seeing somebody like me, because obviously, if it's not medical, it's something, the way we're thinking about it or something like that.
Right. And I understand that completely, because anything that like in your that affects you inside like that, parts that you can't see, is going to reflect on the outside as far as symptoms go. So
Very, very true. And
completely
it's hard to say. There is no, every time your anxiety goes up, your stomach hurts. That may happen this week, but next week it may be something else. So it changes within the person. It's unique to each person. That's why I use your supports. I mean, and medical professionals, we're here for that. You know, as far as financial, because there's a financial piece to it, but there are things in place, like I said, sliding scales and things like that
help.
that go off for your income. So if your income has changed, it's a simple calculation, and we figure it out from there.
Okay. I really thank you for joining us today. I feel like this was very beneficial for our audience, and I'm looking forward
I
to
hope it is.
continuing to share this and put it on our website. So, if you guys are interested, this is James Slaton with the Community Health Centers of Western Kentucky here in Russellville, and his office number. They also have other physicians. Did you want to mention that? They have a team.
Oh yeah, we have pediatricians, we have a walk-in clinic, and we have the medical adult side. So we have an adult side, we have a children's side with the walk-in clinic there, and then we have mental health also. We have lab and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We try. I think we can cover everybody's needs ultimately. If they need anything, they just need to let us know.
Okay, that sounds awesome. So again, that phone number for mental health, I'm sorry, the community health center is 270-726-9568. That's 726-9568. So give them a call if you need anything there. And I hope y'all have a blessed day. Thank you again, James. I know you've got to get back. And
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon. Y'all have a blessed day.
All right, have a great day. Bye bye.